How long have you been coming to this podcast? Maybe when you first started listening to it and all the other podcasts you've been listening to, maybe that was a big change for you. Maybe you were listening to Top 40 or maybe to the news, and then you found this podcast. You found other podcasts. You found out that you could change what you were listening to and it would have an effect on your mood. It would teach you new skills. And it was a big transformation for you. I know it was for me when I first started that shift. But where are you now? And in the middle of this crisis that we're just beginning to come out of, where are you now? And what I want to tell you is if you're not where you want to be in your health, in your wealth, in your relationships, it's time to raise your standards. And that is today's theme for Real Talk Friday. So what's up, everyone? And if you are new to this podcast, you are listening to the Legendary Life Podcast. I'm health expert Ted Rice. What we usually do is break down science-based information on how to live longer, prevent disease, and live a legendary life. But on Real Talk Fridays, we go deeper than the tactics and the tricks and the techniques. We talk about the underlying psychology of success. Because I'll tell you right now, I run a weight loss, fat loss, body transformation, whatever you want to call it, program. But any type of program like that doesn't include a fundamental shift in your identity, that doesn't challenge you at the psychological level, is a waste of your time and it's a waste of your money. And that's why if you bought the $100 programs, if you've hired the $200 a month online coaches that give you a thumbs up emoji whenever you ask them a complicated question that you desperately need an answer to, now you know why you are still in the same place. So how do we raise our standards? We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I want to suggest to you that the results in your life right now are a consequence of the standards that you have. Not about what you want in your life, not about what you'd like to have in your life, not about any of those things. It is a result of your standards and what you do every single day to back those standards up. And I hear from so many people, I'm not the type of person to exercise. I'm not an exercise person. I'm a person who's been overweight my whole life. My family was overweight. I was overweight. I'm a person who's been struggling in relationships my whole life. I'm unlucky in love. My family was broke. I'm broke. No matter how much money I make, no matter how many raises I get, I still spend as much. I still end up struggling financially. There's too much month at the end of the money. And that is your identity right now. But I want to ask you, where did that identity form? And to help you figure that out, I want to tell you about an experience I had. When I was in Thailand, I wanted to see the big shows that they have there that have the elephants. And I always kind of wondered, how do these big, powerful, majestic beasts, how do they just not, pull the whole tent down? How is it that this little rope attached to this little stake keeps this elephant from doing what it has the power to do? And then I learned how the people in the Thai villages train elephants. They call it breaking the spirit. They get the elephant when it's a baby. They lock it into a cage. They torture it. They beat it. They make it believe that it is powerless and that there's no way out and that it must obey its masters. And so when it grows up to be a big, powerful elephant that could trample over people, that could pull an entire tent down by itself, it doesn't. Why? Because it's been conditioned since it was a little baby elephant. And I want to ask you, when did your belief start? If you have ever said, I'm not the person that makes money. I'm not the person that has a good love life. I'm not the person that will ever be thin or in shape or anything like that. When did that limiting belief start for you? Did someone beat you into submission, condition you? Who was it? What did they say? What did they do? Was it physical? Was it verbal? Was it both? And how long has it been since that conditioned you to be where you are now? And how long have you been stuck where you are now? And how much longer do you want to stay stuck where you are now? I know what this is like. I've been stuck. I've been stuck in relationships. I've been stuck in my finances. I've been stuck with my health. You all saw my transformation. Most of you, at least. I was stuck. And so many people are stuck right now. And what I'm here to tell you is that you can get unstuck. And the way you do that is to raise your standards, stretch yourself, set bigger goals, stop playing small. And I don't care if you have success in finances or success in another area of your life, in relationships, but you feel like you can't have it in health. The three big areas, health, wealth, relationships, that's what it's about, folks. That's the 20% that give you the 80% in your life. So raise your standards. You know what's interesting about standards is because many of you might be thinking, well, I've tried raising my standards. It hasn't worked. I've tried forcing myself to do things. It hasn't worked. Either negative emotions sabotage me and I can't control myself and I end up overeating, or I just don't have the self-discipline. I wake up in the morning and try to go work out, but I just hit the snooze button. And you know what's interesting is this. Have you ever known someone who had a story like that, but then something happened? Let's say they are struggling with finances, but then one of their kids got sick. And then they stepped up. They don't know how they did it. They don't know where the money came from, but they made it happen. They raised their standards. Do you know someone who's been stuck with their health, overweight or obese, and then they changed dramatically? What happened? They kept it off. They kept the weight off. What happened? They raised their standards. Do you know people who have been on the verge of divorce and pulled it together? They raised their standards. We all have the ability to do this. Because again, you don't get what you want in life. You get what your standards are, and you get what you back up with action. Because as my mentor, my business mentor, Peter Sage says, if you think The Secret is real, you know that book, that movie, The Secret. If you think The Secret is real and you meditate on checks in the mail, you're only going to get an eviction notice. You've got to back it up with action. And the truth about this is that here's a good example. We like to think, and this goes back to this emotional bank account versus financial bank account versus health bank account that I talked about previously. We like to think, well, your life is easy because you have so much money. To the people that we see who are living the type of lifestyle that so many of us are envious of. And we think, well, your life is just easy that way because you just have money. But the truth is this, if you took away all the money from the people who have it, they just make it right back because that's who they are. And guess what? If you think that it's money that's holding you back, look at the people who win the lottery and end up broke, miserable, or even commit suicide. Look at all the multi-million-dollar athletes who end up going broke and working for $15 to $20 an hour doing security. What's the difference? It's not the money. It's the mindset. It's the standards. It's backing it up with the actions. What are your standards? What are your standards for your health? What are your standards for your financial life? What are your standards for your relationships? And what do you do? Because that's the truth. If I got into a room full of people and said, who here works out regularly? Please stand up. Are those people going to look differently than other people who don't stand up, than the people who stay seated? Of course, they're going to look different. They're going to look like what they do on a daily and weekly basis. They have very different standards and very different habits than the people who don't. They get up in the morning, they go work out, or they hit the gym after work, or whatever it is. They pay more attention to what they eat, even if they're not shredded, even if they don't have veins on their abs, but that's what they do. Versus if you're the type of person who hits the snooze button a bunch of times in the morning, skips your morning workout, drags yourself to Starbucks to get a muffin and a Frappuccino, and sits all day at work, snacking on the various things the various candies and donuts and other types of treats that come in. You don't get what you want. You get what your standards are and how you back them up with your daily habits, your daily actions. And so that brings us to how are you going to raise your standards? Because I'll tell you from running this coaching group, the thing that I try to create the most, the fat loss is easy, to be honest. It's so simple. The fat loss, losing fat, if that's your problem, if you've got this mental game already handled, that's the easy part is, okay, what should I eat? What should I not eat? How do I do this? How much to eat? What type of exercise I should do? I can handle that in 5 minutes, maybe 10. It's an inner game, my friends. Success in your relationships, in your financial life, in your health is a reflection of where you are, of your level of consciousness, of your standards, of your daily habits. And if those don't change because you keep going on keto diets, because you keep trying to go low carb, because you keep trying to do a fast, because you keep trying to do the next cool hip workout like SoulCycle or Barry's Boot Camp or P90X, whatever it is, those things are okay. But once you get to a certain point, how do you shift? How do you get to next level? How do you make the transformation? How do you level up vertically instead of just becoming another person, just becoming a version of yourself who just has one more technique or trick to implement? That isn't success. That won't lead you to the next level. That's why you're not getting the results you want. You need to stretch. And the funny thing is, I see intelligent people talk themselves out of success all the time. They run cost-benefit analyses. Oh, I can't do that. It's too expensive. I don't have the time. Again, priority issue, boundary issue. Because what ends up happening if you don't make time for health, you make time for sickness. The bill always comes due. Whether that's weakness, muscle weakness, can't get up and down off the floor, can't play with your kids, you get tired, exhausted from your work, exhausted from setting poor boundaries and letting people take from you, exhausted from feeling like you have to stay focused on work all the time and you can't take 10, 20 minutes for yourself to recharge, to invest in your health. That's not success. You're an example of what not to do. I don't care how much money you make. You're an example of what not to do. This episode is sponsored by Organifi. Do you want to know a secret that all my coaching clients follow? It's really simple, but powerful. Add vegetables into each meal. But let's be honest, most of us, including myself, don't eat the recommended servings of vegetables and fruits each day. So for those of us who are on the go or have trouble eating healthy, having a greens powder makes it easy to get your greens in every single day, no matter how busy you are. And that's why I use and recommend Organifi Green Juice, a superfood powder that you just add water to so that you can get your greens in even when you're on the go. The best thing about Organifi Green Juice is that it actually tastes great. But don't believe me, try it for yourself. And use the code TED20, that's capital TED, the number 20, at www.organifi.com. That's Organifi.com to receive 20% off your first order. But hurry, this is a limited time discount for Legendary Life listeners. Now, back to the episode. I've told this story many times, but I'm going to tell it to you again. I had a client when I was in Miami Beach doing personal training still. When I get there in the morning, he couldn't wait for the session to be done. Had to get to work, always left early. And he started leaving earlier and earlier, and then he started canceling appointments. Had to get to work. I got to get to work. I've got to work. Got to get to work. I've got so much work to do. And it turned out he had stage 4 esophageal cancer. He's no longer here. He's no longer with us. All because he was working himself crazy, going out to eat, spending all that money on vacation, going out to restaurants, neglecting his health, and now he's no longer around. And I wish I could have asked him, was it worth it? Now, I didn't work with this guy very long, obviously, not a very good client, even though I made money from Just a side story. I've made probably a significant amount of income when I was a personal trainer just from people canceling on me. That's how little these people thought of their health and themselves compared to their addiction to work, because that's what it is. It's also procrastination, failing to face the truth. And I would have loved to ask him, was it worth it? Was it worth it to work yourself to this point, to neglect your health, to put work first? Was it worth it? Would have been interesting to hear the answer, but we'll never know. And I want to ask you, are you on that path? What is it going to take for you to raise your standards? Is it going to be the diabetes diagnosis? Is it going to be cancer, your first heart attack, a stroke? What is it going to be for you to get this handled? Because if you're overweight and getting more overweight, or if you're in the obesity range, that's what you're working towards. And I mean working towards because it takes work to get that big. It takes work. You are working at it. Now, it's easier work than getting fit, but it's work. When are you going to raise your standards? When are you going to challenge yourself? When are you going to stop the excuses, stop the story, stop the narrative about why you are where you are, your childhood, society, etc.? Those have affected you. God knows that I have my stories and my reasons. My sister's suicide, my brother's kidnapping and murder, my mother's suicide. That's what it really was. Used to call it a car accident, but it's really a suicide. I've got my reasons, and I've been stuck. And then I raised my standards. And let me tell you, one of the fastest ways to change is to change who you're hanging out with. I mean, that's why you keep coming back to this podcast, isn't it? It's not really because, do you really know that I have better information than other people? Maybe if you've used it and gotten results, but you come back here because it makes you feel a certain way, because it helps you look at things a certain way, because it helps give you strength to hear these messages. We catch emotions from each other. But guess what? If you're in a group of people that operate in the emotions of fear, scarcity, uncertainty, shrinking away from challenge, shrinking back to comfort instead of choosing courage, guess who you're going to be? If you're hanging out with 9 people who are operating like that, you're going to be the 10th. Conversely, if you're with 9 people who are all challenging themselves, choosing courage over comfort, choosing to stretch, choosing to raise their standards, choosing to challenge their preconceived beliefs about what's possible with their health, with their life, with their relationships, with their finances, with their career, guess who you're going to be? You're going to be the 10th. A great example of this is I joined an entrepreneur mentorship coaching group, and I got set up with an accountability partner. My accountability partner is taking his business from 7 to 8 figures this year. He wants to speak in front of 10,000 people. He's got a loving family. He's helping serve at a high level because he believes that people aren't dollar signs. They're people. And he wants to live in the type of world where people start stepping up and doing the right thing for themselves. And I want to live in that world too. And we spend an hour together every single week now. Well, it was 2 hours last week. We got into the zone. But what do you think is going to happen to my business hanging out with him? So I'm not that great of an entrepreneur. That's why I'm in the coaching group. And I don't have an ego that stops me from putting on my white belt and learning from the people who know how to do this. Is your ego stopping you? I've been on calls with people. Well, I think I can figure this out. Well, how long have you been trying to do this? 10 years? What year do you think is going to be the breakthrough year for you? The 11th, the 15th, the 20th, the 30th? Exactly which year is going to be the breakout based on your past behavior, your past lack of success? Oh, I don't have the money. Really? If your child was sick and you had to come up with even $20,000, $10,000, do you think you could do it? Most people would be able to. They would dig deep and make it happen. Some people are stuck. Most of us just don't want to be bothered. We're just getting more pleasure from what we're doing now than to push ourselves up to back up what we say our values are. Oh, I value health. Okay, why aren't you doing it? Well, it's hard. It's also hard to be overweight, hard to be unhealthy, hard to be sick. Choose your hard. I've also talked to people who, when they say they don't have the money, and I ask them, hey, is it because you really don't have the money? Or is it because you don't want to spend the money on this? Usually comes down to that. And when it comes down to, well, I don't want to spend the money on this, it comes down to, is it because you think this doesn't work for you, or because you think you won't do it? And here's the catch. If you don't invest, if you don't put skin in the game, of course you're never going to do it. That's why you keep going for the cheap solutions. That's why you keep getting the cheap results. You get what you pay for, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a rule they teach you. It's not a rule of the universe they teach you in physics class, but it might as well be one. And that's what I want to leave you with. What are the patterns that are keeping you stuck? Because I want to tell you this. Every time that you run that cost benefit analysis, every time that you do that comfortable thing that you do, that's the pattern that's keeping you stuck. Every time you say what you say, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, that's what's keeping you stuck. And if you're ready for the challenge, a challenge, then what I want you to do is this: prove it to yourself that you can do this. You want to get free coaching from me to test things out? Actually, we started this challenge for, I'll be straight with you, we started this challenge for 2 reasons. Number one, most people won't ever sign up with me. I'm cool with that. Most people will live at a certain level of life, and I'm not here to judge. I've been stuck. I have had low standards, or what I view as low standards now. But my judgment doesn't matter. If you're happy, then that's all that matters. And I'm cool with that. So we started this challenge for 2 reasons. Number one, I want to give back to you. I want you to experience what it's like to get coached. And if you experience that, whether you hire me or someone else, I'm cool with that. But I want to give you a taste of what it's like to be coached. I'll give you a 3rd reason, actually, before I go into the reason I was going to say. I want you to show yourself that you can do this, because you know how many people sign up? We've run the challenge twice, and the trend is that we get a lot of people signing up and not a lot of people following through. It's really sad. At least for me, if I had to attach an emotion to it, I'm like, man, all these people wanted to do something, said they wanted to do it. And when it came time to doing it, they disappeared. They didn't show up. They didn't show up for themselves, for free. No challenge. Nothing to pay. Didn't show up. I want you to prove it to yourself that you can do this. And I want you to take the challenge seriously. And I want you to experience coaching. I coach you for free for 7 days. People tell me it's changed their life. And then those people signed up to be clients in my coaching group. But it will change you. Well, not everybody. Not everybody says it becomes a client, is what I'm saying. Some people said this started them on a whole new path. And then they went off on their own and did their own thing. And that's cool with me too. I want to give back to you. I really honestly do. And then for the very few who want to take things to the next level, this is your chance for testing the goods for free. Happy to do it for you. I want to take all the uncertainty away out of this. And that's why we run this challenge. And it is something it is just amazing what's happening in the challenge. Whether people sign up to be clients or not, it's life-changing for people. It puts them on the path that they didn't even know that this path existed. They lose 2, 3, 4 pounds in 1 week. And if you want to try it, legendarylifepodcast.com/challenge. We even might make it so that you can't even hop on a call with me unless you've proven yourself in the challenge. Just thinking out loud. But I think that's a good way to roll, because if you can't even show up for the challenge, you are not ready for the coaching group. Prove it to yourself. Experience the power of coaching. And then from what you want to do from there, well, I know I've done my part. That's all I've got for today for you. But I want to let you know that I love you, I care about you, and you are more powerful than you know. Even if you don't believe it, even if you don't feel it, you are that big, strong, powerful person. It's just maybe when you were young, maybe in school, maybe a few bad relationships, whatever happened, maybe a few bad divorces, maybe one bad divorce, maybe more, I don't know. Whatever your story is, but it's gotten you stuck. But I promise you this, you have the power to get yourself unstuck. Never forget that. Love you, hope you enjoyed this, and I'll speak to you soon.